Hello and welcome to the Temple of Tomes with your host, Indie Comics Jones. Today is March 4th, 2021, and this is episode 220. We're looking at the Swamp Thing today. This is a DC comic, first of a 10-part series. This is part of the Infinite Frontier event that's going on. I believe it's just picking up where Future State left off, and from what I understand, the Swamp Thing Future State was one of the better items that was coming out of that whole event. I didn't read it. I didn't read any of the Future State. I was kind of concentrating on other things, but from what I understand, that was a recommend, and so this is definitely a recommend. This was a lot of fun, very interesting, a great moving story. What we've got depicted here on the cover here is Levi Kamei. He's got the Swamp Thing popping out of his back. I believe he is of Indian descent, not Native American, but from India. And so he's the latest iteration of the Swamp Thing in human form. I'm not sure how he got the germ in him, but he's got the Swamp Thing definitely coming out of him. But this doesn't happen in the comic, but it does. It's a good representative of what's going on within himself. So I will give it a pass this time. Let's open it up and see who worked on this book real quick. Okay, it's called Becoming, Part 1 of 10. Ram V is the writer. We've got the Mikes, Perkins, and Spicer on artist and colorist. And I wanted to say the art in here is fantastic. The Ram V did a great job on writing this. Good storytelling, kept me enthralled throughout, and really built up the narrative here. As you can see, the art, he's describing, basically they found a corpse. So they're looking at the maggots to see how long the body has been dead for. And we get an ad here right off, and I just want to mention this thing is chocked full of ads just all the way through, kind of breaking up your experience of reading this. But so this is out in the desert, and as they're examining the corpse here, they start to talk about an old legend, because the coroner apparently is new. He's from out of town. So they talk about this legend, and they're not even sure what the guy's name was, but it's an old desert legend about this guy that was in the Civil War, and he set up as a homesteader, and then he became more and more of a recluse, and sometime in the 1950s suddenly appeared again, and he was actually drinking the oil that they were pumping out of the ground. And from then on there, he was terrorizing anybody that was kind of coming into Texas. So the sheriff kind of thinks it's fake, and the guy takes it as for what it's worth, the new coroner of the area. So it's way out in the middle of nowhere, as you can tell. And this cactus has some blooms that are happening right then, kind of drifting over the corpse. I'm going to skip all these ads. There's just too many to take in. In the meantime, we've got Levi Kamei going from, I believe it's India, all the way back to JFK. He went and visited his father, who was getting ready to pass away, I guess. I'm assuming, I'm just piecing together what clues they were given in this one issue here. But as you can see, it's really intense. He's having a lot of anxieties. He's having trouble sleeping. He says he's not scared of flying, but I'm assuming just the claustrophobia, just being stuck in one place for so long is starting to get to him a little bit. And he has that intense swamp thing going on inside of him. I'm not sure how he picked it up, but it's definitely there. So at some point, he's just kind of freaking out a little bit, and he starts having little flashbacks in his head of what he was going through in India, and decides he has to get up and go to the bathroom really quick because he doesn't think he can hold it in. I guess we're going to get an ad for every Infinite Frontier throughout here. And then we get this nice spread, just him just totally freaking out. He sees branches coming out of his eyeball, his hands. He's just turning right to the Swamp Thing. His vines are just going crazy through the airliner, just blowing it to bits as the stewardess is saying, "Sir, sir, sir," or flight attendant. Then we get some more Infinite Frontier. So like I said, there's a lot of ads in here. Sir, and it's like it turns out they've landed. It was all a nightmare. So every time he sleeps, he has these awful nightmares. So he leaves the airport. He's all disheveled. He's had a rough flight, and his old friend Jennifer has picked him up. Now I'm looking at the picture of this. This was something that kind of bothered me. Was the I guess there's supposed to be highlights on her face, but they actually look like something's crawling on her face, or shell pasta or something there. I'm not sure. But then you see the next frame, you see it's not there. So I guess it's supposed to be an attempt to do highlights, and it just didn't really come off that well. It looks very three-dimensional. So it turns out that he is being followed by some group. We don't know, apparently. And we get a few more ads. Like I said, this was $3.99, by the way. So we go, meanwhile, back at the desert, it's getting dark. They're kind of getting ready to leave, and they're checking out because he's heard there's bad things been happening, and the sheriff has heard there's bad things happening out there. And it says police, but I think he's a sheriff, actually. So they hear some gunshots. The two officers split up and go different directions because they're going to try to circle around and come up from behind. And what we see is what's happening is it appears there's something's going on in the desert. I don't know if it's coyotes or drug runners or what, but there's one guy shooting, and we see this outline of this mysterious thing here. And he comes in, he closes in on the guy, and the guy hears him screaming, the sheriff. And then we get our first glimpse of him. And he says loud and clear, "Sheriff," because this guy says the sheriff wants him to stop what he's doing. He doesn't really know what it is. And then we flash back to Jennifer's apartment where Levi's going to spend the night. He's going to sleep on the couch. I guess they used to be more than just friends before. It doesn't really go into it too much. But he goes off to sleep and starts having his dreams again. But this time it gets a little bit even more intense, where he's kind of going almost out of his body. It's kind of neat the way they draw it as he sleeps. You see the greenery start emerging from him as you see this nice job on that. Just really cool look. And then he gets a flashback to his father, and his father's holding his hand as the Swamp Thing, and he just keeps mutating here. So we're back at the desert, the Sonora Desert. The sheriff is shooting at the guy. I don't know if he's got a name or not. They gave him a couple different names, but they weren't sure who he actually was. So suddenly he grabs the gun. He's going to do the sheriff in, but the cactus that was blooming earlier starts transforming into what it looks like the Swamp Thing. You can see the teeth there, the eye. It's just kind of going crazy, and it kind of came off those petals, I believe. And we get this wonderful spread. You know, it's even got the bisexual lighting going on, and it's just used for a tremendous effect here. Just the way, and it reads beautifully. It wasn't confusing at all. You just kind of go like this. And you get a little bit of the fight in. We see this creature put his arm right through Swamp Thing. But it's just really cool. The Swamp Thing's fighting back a bit. And it kind of ends here. And we shows Central Park. And we've got Levi bursting out of a tree out of Central Park. And he's kind of in this floating fetus state. So very curious way to end it, but this desert creature is told the Swamp Thing to go back and come back. I'll teach you more lessons, basically. And so that's kind of how it ends. And we get a few more ads, of course, because what would a DC book be without lots of ads? I've actually heard this is pretty good. I'm going to try to check it out if I get a chance as well. Superman and Lois. So it is a recommend if I didn't mention it already. I appreciate you stopping by and listening to my review. As always, please like, please subscribe, please leave comments, and we'll see you next time at the Temple of Tomes. As always, this is Indie Comics Jones bidding you adieu.